Thanks to at home for joining us this hour. I'm happy to have you with us. And as I mentioned to Chris, I am sort of surprised that this story is not more wall to wall everywhere right now. I do think in coming days, as people really absorb what this new indictment means, it may end up being as big a story as it deserves to be. As you by now may have heard, the WikiLeaks guy, Julian Assange, has been newly indicted. Last month, he was taken out of that embassy in London where he'd been hiding for the past few years, trying to avoid criminal prosecution in multiple countries. It looks like Sweden is pursuing rape charges against him now. The UK has prosecuted him and now jailed him for jumping bail. But when he was pulled out of that embassy last month, he was charged in the United States with a computer hacking charge. He was specifically charged for helping a U.S. soldier, who's now named Chelsea Manning, helping her try to break a password, basically to cover up unauthorized access to classified materials, which Manning was illegally downloading from a Defense Department computer for the purpose of sending them to WikiLeaks to publish. Now, the U.S. laid that charge against Julian Assange. They said they wanted to bring Assange to trial on that charge here in the United States. But he is not here in the United States. He's in the UK. And the UK has to decide whether or not they are going to extradite, whether or not they are going to ship him over here to face that criminal charge. That was the situation heading into today. Now, today, apparently the United States government has decided maybe they don't want the UK to extradite Julian Assange here to ever face trial. Or at least that would appear to be the intriguing, fascinating, and very worrying bottom line of this remarkable thing that the Justice Department did today when they unsealed a new superseding indictment, so an additional indictment against Assange. Only this time, it is not the same kind of criminal allegation they made against him in the initial indictment. It's not some hacking computer crime like they originally charged him with. Now, as of today, they are charging him with 17 counts under the Espionage Act. And these new charges are not about stealing classified information or outsmarting computer security systems in order to illegally obtain classified information. It's not about that. These new charges are trying to prosecute Assange for publishing that stolen secret material, which was obtained by somebody else. And that is a whole different kettle of fish than what he was initially charged with. There has never in this country been a successful prosecution under the Espionage Act of some third party for publishing something that somebody else stole or something that otherwise made its way out of the government while the government was trying to keep it secret. We've never in this country successfully charged somebody for publishing secret material. But by charging Assange for publishing that stuff that was taken by Manning, by issuing these 17 charges today, the Justice Department has just done something you might have otherwise thought was impossible. The Justice Department today, the Trump administration today, just put every journalistic institution in this country on Julian Assange's side of the ledger, on his side of the fight, which I know is unimaginable. But that is because the government is now trying to assert this brand new right to criminally prosecute people for publishing secret stuff. And newspapers and magazines and investigative journalists and all sorts of different entities publish secret stuff all the time. That is the bread and butter of what we do. Right? There is a reason, it's called the First Amendment, that the U.S. government has never successfully made that a crime before. But here, with Assange, they are trying to do it. And as a matter of law, this is not at all about Julian Assange and WikiLeaks doing what they did in the 2016 election. This is not related to them working with Russian intelligence material in 2016 to try to help Trump win the election and to try to hurt Hillary Clinton. This is not about WikiLeaks and Julian Assange personally strategizing with Trump campaign staffers about how to beat Hillary Clinton as they were releasing all that information stolen by the Russians. I mean, these new charges have nothing to do with that. These new charges also, frankly, have nothing to do with the nature of the material that WikiLeaks published from the Chelsea Manning documents in 2010. What this is now a novel legal effort to punch a huge hole in the First Amendment by labeling it spying, labeling it criminal espionage to publish secret stuff in a country where we have a long, proud journalistic history of journalistic entities publishing secret stuff. And of course, this comes conveniently at a time when this administration, this president personally, is calling the press the enemy of the people, The president this week gleefully saying out loud at a political rally that his new attorney general is looking at bringing criminal charges, bringing criminal investigations against the president's personal enemies. The president expressing glee about that this week at a political rally, that he likes his new attorney general for doing that. And I'm sure this president would love to establish a new legal doctrine, a whole new legal lane for the U.S. government that's never existed before, where anyone who publishes stuff the government doesn't want published gets prosecuted by the Justice Department under the most serious statutes imaginable, facing long prison terms for doing it. I'm sure this president would want that. I'm sure he is absolutely stupefied that he doesn't already have that power. But he doesn't have that power. He's never had it before. No president has. And this is the president who's saying that, the FBI is committing treason and the press is the enemy of the people. I'm sure he'd be happy to say that the press is committing treason too, and espionage and all the rest of it. But what's going to happen next here is going to be fascinating, because in order to pursue this prosecution, the United States will have to persuade Great Britain, our great ally, that they should extradite Julian Assange here to face these new charges. And from the UK's perspective, obviously the UK and the US have an incredibly important and close relationship that extends absolutely to having close and cooperative relationships on all sorts of law enforcement and intelligence matters. But I think there may be reason to not expect automatic British deference on something like this. For one thing, however special the relationship is between the U.S. and the UK, it may have become considerably less special once we inaugurated a new president who heads a new White House where they literally can't even spell the name Theresa May, who is Prime Minister of the UK. It's not like it's a tough name. They really can't manage it, ever. Theresa May right now, frankly, also has bigger fish to fry. Her role as Prime Minister is uncertain. The future of her government is very uncertain. British politics has not teetered like this in a very long time, but it teeters right now, perhaps more precipitously than ever, thanks to the Brexit disaster that, incidentally, our own president has loudly supported and tried to link to his own presidential campaign. And honestly, even if the US-UK relationship were as strong as ever, the Brits really do have an unequivocally independent judiciary and legal system that was always going to consider this extradition request critically, because it was always going to be controversial. It was controversial even when it was just the one computer hacking crime, right? Now that it's espionage? It will not help the American case to extradite Julian Assange that the U.S. is trying something totally novel on him, right? The U.S. has never successfully brought these kinds of charges ever before. In general, I'm going to tell you the bottom line here is stay tuned on this, but I think these 17 espionage charges against the WikiLeaks guy are a huge deal and a very dark development. Chris Hayes this evening called it a 4-alarm development. I absolutely share that. And I know you. Given everything else that we know about the WikiLeaks guy, I can feel through the television right now your mixed feelings about what I am saying, right? I can feel what may be, perhaps, a certain lack of concern about Julian Assange's ultimate fate, right? Given his own gleeful and extensive personal role in trying to help a hostile foreign government interfere in our election in order to install their chosen president with WikiLeaks' help, right? I know. I feel ya. I got it. But it is a recurring theme in history. Heck, it is a recurring theme in the Bible that they always pick the least sympathetic figures to try this stuff on first. Despite anybody's feelings about this spectacularly unsympathetic character at the center of this now international drama, you are going to see every journalistic institution in this country, every First Amendment supporter in this country, left, right, and center, swallow their feelings about this particular human and denounce what the Trump administration is trying to do here. Because it would fundamentally change the United States of America. It would fundamentally change the balance of power between the people and our government. But as I said, in the first instance, it'll be interesting to see what happens in Britain, because they're going to have first crack at this. My guess is that these radical new charges, this novel new effort by the Justice Department to turn publishing secret material into a violation of the Espionage Act for the first time ever, I think there is a good chance that will be viewed as controversial enough by UK authorities that it may preclude them from ever sending him over here to stand trial. I mean, they have rules of their own that preclude them from sending somebody to, for example, face a political prosecution. I don't know if that's how they will define this sort of thing, but they should recognize that what Assange is being charged with, regardless of how you feel about Assange, it is a fundamentally novel and radical thing that the Trump administration is trying to do. And that will matter to them when they make their extradition decision, which wasn't a sure thing anyway.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.